this is Shirleen with Shirleen's Biblical Kitchen, and we're milling some flour. This is Spelt, because we're going to make some wonderful Spelt bread today, and I know you're going to love it. This flour is ground so fine, it's just wonderful to make with. It has all the 45 nutrients that your whole grains have in them. Nutrients that our body needs, and you're probably not going to get those 45 nutrients anywhere else. I want to talk just a little bit about our biblical ancestors. They would have made bread probably daily because they didn't go to the store and buy bread. The early days, they built open sort of pits that were rounded out of mud or clay, and they put their stones or their whatever they cooked with different things. And they would have made their bread in that. You know, the Bible talks about feast all the time, having feast. Somebody comes in, you make cakes and breads, and it's important to them as it is today. Food is our culture, it's our way of life. Different cultures have different food, but every culture is going to have some kind of bread. There's just nothing like feeding your family something that's good, wholesome. You're not going to get that nutrition anywhere else. I'm really excited about bringing this recipe to you today. I love to make spelt bread, and I love to eat spelt bread, and so does my family. This particular recipe, we're going to use part spelt and part hard white wheat. The spelt is an ancient grain. It is higher in protein, but it's also lower in gluten. And of course, an ancient grain is easier to digest for a lot of people. Ancient grains are really popular nowadays, and I love to cook with them, all kinds of ancient grains. And then we're going to use some hard white wheat. If you have a mill and you grind your own, that's the freshest and the best bread you're going to make. It also has all those 40 plus nutrients in every bite of bread. You could make this bread with bought spelt or with the hard white wheat. You can use whole wheat that you buy, but just keep in mind, it's a little bit different measurements with flour, and I'm going to give you cups and grams. Get your little kitchen scale and go by grams, because when you do cups and you just scoop in and dip out, you'll get too much flour. You can actually weigh it out for yourself, and you can see. Freshly milled flour, as we have here, it's really light and fluffy and airy. If I grind a little too much, I'll keep it in a bag in the freezer. It will get compacted too. So in that case, if you have a compacted flour, one that's been setting, you want to take your flour and shuffle it into your cup. But I want to tell you, the best way is to do gram, whether it's bought flour or whole wheat flour that you mill. One of the advantages of this is it has all the bread and all the germ and all the nutrition. Whole wheat flour you buy in the store has a lot of nutrition, but they have stripped out the germ, which is one of the most nutritious parts, because that's what gives it shelf stability. You may find some brands that are refrigerated. That's the best way to buy your whole grains if you buy them already done. But again, use grams, and when I say grams, you can do that bought flour or not. This bread is light and fluffy, and it's wonderful. And so many people are milling their own grains now, one for nutrition, one just for the taste and the fluffiness of the bread.
Thousands of years ago, our ancestors ate grains that were very different from the grains that we eat today. They were more nutritious, easier to digest, and more sustainable to produce and grow. My name is Jade Coyle with Grand Teton Ancient Grains, and our family farm and mill is dedicated to restoring these ancient grains to the modern family table. We offer a wide variety of ancient grains. In fact, behind me here you can see one of the fields we planted just a few days ago. But the grains that we grow here on our farm are grains like einkorn, emmer, spelt, coruscant, quinoa, rye, just to name some of them. And in the future videos here, we'll teach you and share with you more about how we grow these grains so that they are packed with nutrition and flavor. In the meantime, if you want to check us out, you can go to our website, ancientgrains.com, or check us out on social media under Ancient Grains Family.
So for our spelt flour, we have 222 grams, whole wheat white, 102 grams. The 2 tablespoons of Vita wheat gluten, and the 1 3/4 teaspoon of salt to the spelt, because we'll add it first, and then we'll only add enough of the other flour until the dough pulls away from the sides of the bowl. If we need more flour, you can use it, but once your dough pulls from the sides of the bowl, don't add any more flour. Here we have a cup plus 2 tablespoons of the potato water. Again, no salt or anything in it. Just take your potatoes out, drain your water, let it cool to 115. If it's over 115, it's going to kill your yeast. And then we have a tablespoon of active dry yeast, and the recipe has 1/4 cup of honey, so I went ahead and put that in here too. You can see it really foamed up well, but that's all the sweetener that's going to be in the bread. Vinegar is going to make your bread have a better texture. Potatoes are really going to give it flavor, and the potato water in here just adds a lot of flavor. It's going to make a wonderful, wonderful bread. This also keeps it softer and will help your bread last longer. Mix these up until they're pretty well mixed. We just want to get these well blended. Okay, this is pretty mixed up. It's not 100% with the potatoes. It might be little pieces, but they'll go ahead and mix up when we add our flour. So we're going to add our spelt flour first. It's already pulling away from the sides of the bowl. We're going to let it knead about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to cover it and just let it rest about 15. Whole grains need to rest so that bran can soften up in there. So anytime you're doing whole grains that have the bran in there, you want to let that dough, what they call it, auto release, or just, let's say, rest. So we'll knead it about 5 minutes, and I'm going to cover it with a towel, and we're going to let it set 15 minutes, and we'll come back and knead some more. Now, as my bread is mixing, it's pulling away from the sides of the bowl, but I have added up to 1/4 cup extra flour because it's very humid here today. It really depends on the temperature. It's still plenty sticky, but I'm going to cover it and let it rest. Okay, we're back. This dough has, I kneaded it about 5 more minutes. It's still sticky, but I got my hands wet, by the way. Put just a little bit of water on your hands. It's still sticky, but you can pull it up, it stretches, and I can see light through it with the light. A lot of light through it, in fact. So when you can see light through it, it passed the window pane test. I've got a dough scraper that gets it off the cabinet. This counter, I wet it down as well, not soppy wet, just a tiny bit of water on your hands and wet it. That way it won't stick. We're going to kind of shape this into a ball. Now here I'm going to show you what a stretch and fold is. A lot of times you can make bread by hand, you'll do stretch and folds. Where you stretch it up, you fold it. You stretch it, and you fold it. This is good. This builds strength in the dough too. This could use just a little, even though it's already passed the window pane test. You can do that, and then you let it rest 15 minutes, and you do it again. You do one each direction 4 times, so you can go. That just builds strength in your dough. It's already building it. It's less sticky than it was. See, it's not really sticking to my hand. It just feels sticky. It feels tacky, obviously. But that will help build. Keep just a little water on the counter. Just keep it wet. You can use oil too, but whichever way you want to do it. And then we're going to kind of shape this. And I've got a greased bowl here. And we're going to turn it over on both sides. Roll it over a few times, get it kind of greased on all sides. Then we're going to cover this and let it rest for, so how warm your kitchen is, 45 minutes, maybe to an hour. I'll check it in 30 minutes. You don't want to overproof. If you overproof, your bread will fall. Let it rest for probably up close to an hour, but it depends. If your kitchen's a little cold, like in the wintertime, you can turn your oven on just as low as it'll go. And then as soon as it heats, turn it off. If it's over 100 degrees, it's going to be too hot and it'll kill your yeast. It won't rise. But you can get it warm, and then I could set this in a metal bowl. I could just set it in my oven. And sometimes when I'm in a hurry, I'll do that, but I kind of like it to work on its own as much as possible. You can also take this dough, you can cover this bowl really tightly with plastic wrap. You can put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then you could continue your bread making tomorrow. Make the dough work for you, your schedule. Okay, we have our dough. It's risen. You can tell when it's risen enough, what they call finger poke test. Just take 2 fingers, gently poke it in and see how it stays in. If it comes back, it's not ready. If it deflated it, you've overproofed it, and not much you can do about that. Maybe make flatbread. If this stayed in, that means it's proofed. It's been sitting here about 45 minutes. On a colder day, you might take a little longer. Or, like I said, use the oven. Just don't let it get over 100 degrees. I'm going to wet my surface with water with my hand. Just gently. I'm going to use my dough scraper. Take the bread dough out. My scraper's been in water too, so it's wet, damp. Take this out. And we're going to start making our bread. I've greased a pan, lined it with parchment. So this, like I said, into a rectangle. We get our bowl with water so we make sure it's not sticking. You're going to have to keep that wet under there with some oil or something or it's going to stick. Then you won't be able to get it into your pan. You want this about the length of your pan. Then we're going to fold it over in thirds. Like a third, press it down with the back of your hand. Keep the ends pushed in. We're going to roll it up here, press it down with the back of our hand. Keep our ends pushed in. Again, this dough soft and wet, but that's what's going to make a fluffier bread for us. So that's what we want. We want to be able to get it up off the counter, like I said. Whoops. Let's put a little more water so it's not going to stick on us. Flatten that out. You don't want to just beat it, but you do want to get the air bubbles out. Push your ends together. Then I'm going to roll this and kind of pull it and stretch it back and roll it. Kind of like you would a cinnamon roll, but not quite that tight, but just pull it back and roll it with your ends in. Stretch it back just a little bit. You can use your thumbs, but since I've got the camera this way, I'll use my fingers. Just kind of flatten it out. Keep it even. Pull it back just a little bit and roll it. That helps get the air bubbles out too. Keeps from making those tunnels in your bread. If you shape your dough correctly, you'll have good bread for sandwiches and it won't have those tunnels in it and lots of big holes. You know, in sourdough bread and some of those crusty breads, you want more of a big hole, but it's a little different process than what we're doing here. We're making sandwich bread. Okay, take your ends, and since your hands are a little wet, they'll pinch up really well. Take your dough scraper and tuck your ends under. Tuck those under really well. Now my bread looks smaller here, and that's okay. Dampen my hands again, and I'm going to shape this under. You cup your hands around it, just kind of shape it. And again, you want to keep it about the length of that pan. Anything that looks like it's not going together, you just pinch it together. Get this cupped under really well. And tuck that under a little bit more. And shake it back out. And it's ready to go into our pan. And get it into our pan gently. That's the perfect length. You know, bread will rise up and out, but it won't get longer. So if you don't get it in your pan, it's too short. That's how it's going to be, which is not the end of the world, but I can get it the length of the pan I like to. But sometimes I don't. Just kind of gently mash it down or flatten it out, I guess. Now, we're going to put some sesame seeds on this. It looks good. To put sesame seeds or sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds or whatever kind of seeds you want the top of your dough kind of wet. Now this is a little wet because we've had some water, but it may not be wet enough to make the seeds stick. So I have some egg beat up here, 1 egg, small egg. I get eggs from somebody that raises them, so this was a smaller one. And I'm just going to gently brush it on the top. Just very lightly and gently. This helps it brown and makes it really pretty too. And it'll make our sesame seeds stick a lot better. Seeds on there. And we'll be ready to let this rise for about maybe 30 minutes because it kind of comes to the top of the pan, and then it will puff up maybe a little more in the oven. It should. About 15 minutes. I'm going to preheat my oven to 375. and that'll give this time to rise and time for my oven then to heat up. So I'm gonna leave it. Well, warm in here, you probably wouldn't have to cover it, but I'll check on it in about 20-30 minutes. We've got our bread out of the oven and it's so good. I did bake it about 35 minutes. I checked it at 20 and then 25, and it took about 35. You want it golden brown. You want it hollow on the bottom, but you also want to check it with a digital thermometer. You want the inside to be 190 to 200 degrees. This is 195 is where I let it get to, and I took it out and let it cool. You should always cool your bread at least 2 hours to 4. When you cut it hot, your bread can get gummy. It can get, the texture would just get messed up. So let it cool. I know I don't like it hot, but let it cool. I have a little bit of honey and butter here. I'm going to slice this off a little piece. This bread is soft. It's bendable. This makes such good sandwich bread because it really has good structure. And it's because of the vinegar and the mashed potatoes and the things we put in it, the additions, that make it turn out this way. Otherwise, may not be as good for sandwiches. You can put peanut butter jelly sandwiches on there and it's not going to fall through and it's not going to fall apart. It's not crumbly. I like honey butter. I like this bread with peanut butter and honey mixed up together on it. Peanut butter sandwich. You can make peanut butter sandwiches with jelly, with butter, however you want to make them. I like this for chicken salad sandwiches. It's good for just about any kind of sandwich. When I keep my bread, I'll keep this in one piece for tonight, and I have bread bags like this that I'll keep my bread in. But after tomorrow, I'll slice it and I'll put it in my bread bag sliced. That way I can take it out and make toast, French sandwiches, whatever I want. But a lot of times I will toast it because fresh bread is not going to keep like bread with all the preservatives in it. Tender and absolutely delicious. The flavor is just wonderful. You're going to love this bread. I hope you'll give it a try.
We just finished our spring planting, so we're putting away our equipment for the rest of the summer, the planting equipment anyway. And I wanted to come back to you with a little bit more information about some of the things that we're doing here at our family farm and mill to help restore these ancient grains to the modern family table. Everything that you buy from us at our website, ancientgrains.com, everything is certified 100% organic. So not only are you getting the ancient grains, but you're getting all of the health and nutrition that comes because of our farming practices. We don't use any herbicides or pesticides or chemicals in any of our products that we grow. And in addition, we don't add anything to the flours that we produce. So you know it is as wholesome as it can be. So use this coupon when you go shop on our site. It's Bible 10. That gives you 10% off anything at ancientgrains.com.
I hope you enjoyed watching our show today as much as we enjoyed filming it. I hope you'll come back and join us for future shows. I want to tell you just a little bit about what we're going to be doing in some of our shows. We'll be doing lots of bread baking, especially with ancient grains, einkorn, spelt, corson, quinoa, all kinds of grains. And we'll do more than bread baking. We'll do desserts. We'll make some wonderful einkorn cookies. We'll be doing side dishes and main dishes. And we're going to talk about the ancient grains, the different kinds, and the nutritional value, and the fact we know they're easier to digest for a lot of people. But also about how to sift if you want to lighten the load of your bread. I'm going to show you how to sift some of that out. Companies, you can buy it already sifted. They'll sift out 20, and you can buy those flours. Like an einkorn, it's called all-purpose flour. It's 20% taken out. So you can buy those, and I do buy them, and I do use them. Sometimes when I'm making a pie crust, I like to sift out my own amount, maybe 20%, maybe 30%, but a little bit more, so it makes a lighter, fluffier pie crust. This pie crust is especially difficult with whole grain. When we talk about sifting some of the bran out of flour that we mill, that's an old practice. When the Israelis were under Egyptian captivity, The Egyptians had bakers that were dedicated just to baking, and they had people that just sifted out the bran. So they knew about sifting out the bran way back in biblical times, and they would have done that when it suited their purposes. So there's nothing wrong with sifting out a little bit. I do make a lot of things with 100% whole grain, but sometimes I will sift a little bit out. So I'll show you how to do all those processes. I hope you'll join us on the next show, and you have a wonderful day and a joyous baking.